It is now the top of the hour, 3 o'clock here in Saint Lucia. That I think would make it 8 o'clock over in the UK, and for Mark over in France, I think it would be 8 for you as well. If let's just see who else is going to come on. If we have any folks joining in from Switzerland, that would be 6 hours ahead. So just greetings, everyone. Welcome. And also let me say welcome to my esteemed guests and panelists this evening. Minister of Tourism, Dr. Ernest Hilaire, also Deputy Prime Minister, and my friend and colleague, friend and I guess colleague in tourism and otherwise, John Mathurin. So let me welcome you all and welcome participants who are on. I just wanted to start out by saying that so far, in this series where we have been exploring the idea of Lucian-ness, what does it mean? Who are we? Who is a Lucian? What makes us Lucian? What makes being Lucian special? And how might we use this to be the best that we can be? The first couple of sessions, we've had 4 so far. This is going into number 5. We've looked at the history and coming through and the different ethnic groups and the influences and impacts of those groups. And what has come out right across the board is that sense that everyone that has engaged so far has a deep caring for Saint Lucia and for being Saint Lucian. And while we are predominantly Afrocentric, Black, it's so easy, and certainly it has been for me as a Black person, to see things predominantly through my eyes, to see the challenges that I am faced with and others like myself are faced with. However, it has been very, very interesting speaking to other ethnicities and having them share their stories, both stories that have been shared here, as well as stories that have been shared privately with me. I'm coming to realize that deep-seated feeling and caring about being Saint Lucian and wanting to have a positive impact and wanting to see good across the board. And out of this, I've had the realization that what has happened is in a lot of instances, we only exist in our silos, but not knowing anything about the others. And what I hope is that coming out of this series, there's a greater awareness and as a consequence, cross-pollination. In this episode, I have gone on a tangential route, and it is a route that I've always, or tangential position. It's a position that I've always intended to come to, and that is one of, as we look at being Lucian, it is absolutely important and imperative for us to also consider the economic aspect of being Lucian. And that economic aspect redounds in so many different ways. In the quality of life we lead, in the impact on our healthcare system, taxes that revenue that government raises in the form of taxes, etc. Crime, a hungry man is an angry man. And if people in the society see themselves locked out from the bounty that is around them, well, we can understand the negative impact that there is going to be. And then we get to a situation where it's going to be impossible to build walls that are high enough to defend oneself or to protect oneself. So with that in mind, I thought with tourism being the primary economic driver of our economy, well, primary economic driver here, for us to have a conversation that now speaks to economics. And I have to say thank you to the minister on multiple counts. Minister, it was a couple of weeks ago on the royal visit when we were standing on the tarmac welcoming in the royals, when I saw you and I said, Minister, I have this program going. I think you might be aware of it. I want to do something on tourism and I would really love for you to be a guest. Without batting an eyelid, without asking anything more about it, your response to me was sure. just reach out. And that made me feel really, really, really good, because this is the first time in my life that I have been able to have or have had this sort of outreach with a minister of tourism and gotten this sort of feedback. And even where we've had interactions in the past, me sharing, look, here are some things, here are some areas of concern, etc. You've always given that voice of listening and saying that you want to see better right across the board. So again, testimony to that, you saying, no problem, you're going to come on. So absolutely grateful for that. As I've indicated before, John and myself, we have had many conversations about how tourism can be of greater benefit to a broader cross-section of St. Lucia, how it can be of greater benefit to us as well. And for this reason, I really, really look forward to today's engagement, where we speak to tourism, where we speak to some of the challenges, some of the things that are in the work, but ultimately how it can help us to be the best that we can be economically and otherwise. Before handing over to you, Minister, I also want to state, and I've shared it in email before, we are far too polarized as a people, politically and otherwise. It is important for us to recognize that we are Saint Lucians first and foremost, all wanting the best for Saint Lucia. And it's important that we view things in terms of abundance rather than scarcity. There is enough for all of us. And from that standpoint, I have wanted to make it clear that this is not a political show. It is not going to be a political show, but rather for us to have deep and meaningful as well as respectful engagement. So with that bit of a preamble, Minister, please allow me to invite you in to share some thought, perspective from your standpoint, and we'll then take the conversation on from there. All yours, Mr. Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Kirk, for inviting me to be one of your guests on this afternoon's episode. And of course, to fellow panelists, John, and to certainly say it's a delight for me to be part of this conversation. And to all the attendees, it's a delight again to also reach out to you and to hear your thoughts on the issues that Kirk has outlined. I mean, I was quick to tell you yes, because I don't see myself necessarily as a minister, but as a Saint Lucian. And if you wanted me to be part of a conversation on being a Saint Lucian, what's a Saint Lucian, I certainly wanted to be part of it. When it now becomes participating as a minister, that creates its own challenges, because you know everything you said will be scrutinized, analyzed, criticized. Not that I'm afraid of being criticized for my beliefs and my thoughts. I have no difficulty with that, you know. But the fact is, you have to be a little more circumspect sometimes when you're a minister, you know what you say and what you do not say. But in your preamble, you raise a lot of critical issues. And from my own academic background, the really issues of tremendous import to our nation, the sense of identity, who we are. You raise issues of the political economy of St. Lucia, the relationship between the politics and the economy, and how certain classes and certain groups may, you know, dominate the economic landscape. You raise issues of race and economics, and these are really fundamental issues. I think you also made a very important point. We are predominantly Afrocentric in terms of our heritage. But there are other influences and other groups present in our society. And sometimes when you hear people speak of Black History Month, and they ask, why don't we have a Black History Month in St. Lucia? And you know, you said that in some societies, being Black is a minority, and not just a minority, but a vast minority. In St. Lucia, it's the opposite. You know, being Afro descent is predominant in our society, whatnot. And you reach out on some very troubling issues. If you look at the political economy of Saint Lucia, who holds economic power, this is the predominant group in the society. And these are academic issues in some ways, but it also plays out in our socio-political and economic reality that we live in. Fortunately, we've not been a country of turmoil and unrest and instability because of those issues. We really don't have the kind of societal instability that exists in some other national societies because of race, because of religion, and even politics. I mean, our politics is very tribalized and polarized, but it is not violent, and it is not, it doesn't take the form of, the kind of destruction, social and economic and political destruction that in some other countries, you look at the Middle East, you look at Africa, we don't have those problems. But yet, the fact still remains that as a people, we need to create wealth so more of our people can benefit and certainly reach civilized standards of living. And you made the point about an hungry, empty belly, and how it can cause social negative social reactions. So as Saint Lucians, we have to always be cognizant of the fact that the wealth of the country has to be shared among the people. Now, for reasons historical, maybe class, maybe because of persons' different competencies, some will have more wealth than others, and that's the nature of the beast. I mean, for centuries, people have dreamt of egalitarian societies. It's not been achieved. The kind of utopia that Thomas Hobbes and so many other famous writers in antiquity wrote about, well, not just antiquity, but even modern political thought, spoke about creating more equal societies, and Karl Marx and Lenin and modern day socialism all dreamt of creating a more equal society. And some people will tell you, you can go as far back as Jesus Christ, and even before Jesus Christ, speaking about a society that is more humane, a society that's more equal, and to treat your neighbor as thyself, meaning you should not necessarily see your neighbor as somebody who's below you, and don't treat them as if they're below you, but treat that if you think about it, this is probably the most profound statement about creating a more equal society. Love thy neighbor as thyself. So it is something that has captured the imagination of mankind ever since, and still does today. And therefore, when you want to speak of, I'm a Saint Lucian and what makes a Saint Lucian, and linking it to tourism and sharing the wealth of tourism as part of the construct of Saint Lucian, is a very critical question, and one which we certainly have to reflect on. And against that background, I'm certainly delighted that you are creating this conversation, and I certainly hope it's a conversation that can spread and more Saint Lucians can speak about it. You talk about our politics being polarized, not just our politics, the world, modern day civilization has gone into a more polarizing construct. Look at the United States. Look at Trump and the role that Trump is playing in the American political sociology right now. The American founding fathers try to create a society, and you look at the preamble to the Independence Declaration in terms of what they wanted to create. And they certainly did not conceive of the America of today when they had their famous, Declaration of Independence, and certainly the Federalist, papers. When you read them, you get a sense of people striving to create a more equal society. And later on, Karl Marx had his Communist Manifesto, trying to say the same thing in a different kind of construct. So societies all over the world seem to have become so more polarized, really, really polarized. And it's frightening. Some people say it's because of technology and social media, and the fact that information can spread and disinformation can spread as information is really creating mayhem in our societal relations. And the relationship between state and society is really being affected, adjusted, and almost been reshaped because of those technological developments. So let's come into St. Lucia. We've held a view, and certainly as a Labour Party, our philosophical, ideological construct is one that speaks of, promoting people. It is one that speaks of empowering people. It is one that speaks of social democracy in many ways. So we start off believing that we need to protect and to really look after the interests of the marginalized and the dispossessed as a motivating, reason why we're involved in politics. It is not to say that we don't want for others to benefit or for others to, enjoy their own, property and ownership of what they have. But we are saying, and I think for me, it's a natural human quality, a human value to look at your neighbor and care about the welfare of your neighbor. No matter what you have, you want to care for your neighbor. You would want to make sure that those who don't have and don't have the ability to have to be cared for. That for me is a humane society. That's a caring society. So you start up from an ideological position where you want to assist those that are marginalized, those that are dispossessed. But we also believe the society must create wealth, and we must support people who are creating wealth. Just as we are creating opportunities for those who don't have wealth to start, obtaining wealth. We have to. So when you look at the tourism industry as a whole, we have to support the people who are the pillars of the industry so they can create more wealth and grow the tourism sector more. But we should not do that at the expense of shutting off new entrants and making it more difficult for new entrants to be part of it. We shouldn't do that. We need to create a playing field that is transparent, that is open, that has certainty, that has, is equitable, and that people can be part of the industry and benefit from it. That's what we have to create. And when we looked at, for example, the legislation that was in place for the legislative framework for managing the tourism industry, it was predominantly driven by one sector. And we thought with it, this cannot continue. We need to create space for other sectors to also benefit from the tourism industry and to get the support for them to thrive. Think about it, just think about it deeply. Why should you have a legislative framework or policy framework that provides greater support, incentive, and encouragement to one sector and all the other sectors are left out? And they have to struggle and they have to really go through severe hardship for them to survive and even thrive. And then the sector that is dominant, the accommodation sector, in this case, the hotel resort sector, can create conditions for those other sectors to exist within their own space. Just think about it. I want you to reflect on it, So persons on the outside have tremendous difficulty because of the legislative policy framework from entering that space and thriving in that space. Those that the legislative and the framework is really looking after has within the operation, the space for that sector that is suffering to thrive. So, I mean, it is totally stacked against the other sectors. And then you sit down and you think about it. That sector which is predominant, the accommodation, in this case, the hotel resort, is largely foreign owned. Now, we're not decrying them, we're not tearing them down. It is a statement of reality. There are a couple of Saint Lucia, a few Saint Lucians that are in the accommodation sector, and we're really grateful for that. And there are tremendous examples of Saint Lucian-ness and Saint Lucian resort to be part of the island and the prosperity of the island. But we want more of that. We want the foreign interest to come. We want the foreign investor to come. We will give them all the support they are accustomed to getting. But we want the Saint Lucian to be part of that industry. So it's not a zero-sum game. It's not about a fixed size, and therefore if new entrants come and more Saint Lucians come, others will get smaller slices. We want to make it bigger. So those who had a slice will get a bigger slice, but there'll also be resources for others to get slices too. And for us, that's how we see the industry growing And we're creating the space and we're creating the support for this thing to grow bigger and bigger. But there are two other issues. The whole issue of what is Saint Lucian, and for me, from a tourism perspective, countries will always argue, well, I'm Jamaican, I'm Bajan, I'm American. So people have their own identity and they construct their own notions of identity and what defines them. Saint Lucia, we have a historical unfolding that kinds of shape who we are. We should never believe we are better than others. This kind of national chauvinism should not be part of our identity, but we should recognize where we are as a people and what is unique about us. And every civilization has their own uniqueness, you know. They do. Dominicans, Bajans, Jamaica, they have, and we should not decry other people's uniqueness. What we should do is accentuate our uniqueness. We're supposed to say, this is our uniqueness. How do you find it? Now, our uniqueness might have more attraction, more vibe, you know, more connection with other people, and they will want to associate with us more than others. That's what we should sell. And you look at Saint Lucia and the growth, the historical unfolding of Saint Lucia from being a colony. You know, it is a fact we were not a plantation economy, we were more of a military economy. So the French wanted Saint Lucia so they could attack Barbados, which was the favored British colony, and the English wanted us so they could attack Martinique, which was the favored French colony. Of course, we did have plantations, don't get me wrong, but we were predominantly a military colony. We were sorted after, and everybody wanted us because of our strategic location and the geography of Saint Lucia that allowed for the military, the Navy in that case, to be stationed in Saint Lucia, the Castries Harbor. Francis Drake once wrote that he could hide his entire fleet in Castries, and as the French sailed by, he would see them and then be able to attack them from behind. So we had a lot, and you look at some of the garrisons and the ruins we have in Saint Lucia. Look at Pigeon Point, what it was used for. So we have a history that made us special because of where we were. We have this magnificent balance of flatlands, beautiful beaches with hills and forests. And certainly that made us a feather in the cap. And it made us the Helen of the West. And of course, you know, we're the only country in the world named after a woman, which probably tells you how even more special that we are. We were not like all the other countries named after men. We were named after a woman. And then we have our unique Creole-ness that no other country in the world really enjoys. We have an English civil criminal code and a French civil code. And of course, you know the history of that. Saint Lucia was handed over the British and the free conditions that they would keep the French civil code for the inheritance of land from the French planters who remain on the island. Our Creole language, French had to remain the official language of Saint Lucia, although we became a French colony. And when all the other English colonies were Protestants, we were Catholic. And, you know, I think only Quebec has that hybrid of English and French, you know, mixed codes. So we had the French language, we had the codes, and of course the religion. We were Catholic, not Protestants, when everybody else as an English colony became Protestant. Look at our names, mostly French. The places in Saint Lucia, mostly French. Dr. Anthony used to say that the French gave us our droit de vivre and the English came and tried to tame it. So we have a kind of, you know, personality that is a mixture of two major influences. And then you bring in the African influences on us, and of course the Amerindians had a lesser influence on us. But we have this Creole-ness about us that makes us a very lively and vibrant people. But more importantly, we are fabled for our warmth and hospitality and our welcoming nature. That's who we are. When a visitor comes to our shores, our homes, we want to treat them, we want to take care of them. That's just our innate personality, and we must never lose that. And even in the midst of all the social challenges that we have, we must not lose that defining quality of our warmth, our hospitality, and our welcoming nature. It defines us the world over. We like to treat people. Pardon, I meet you, Kirk, you tell me, boy, meet my partner, I meet from Trinidad, meet here. I want to take care of him too. I want to make him feel at home. I want to make him enjoy him, even come to my room, let me cook up food. Or where you're lining tonight, you want to treat him. A partner tell you have some friends that just came down from England or from wherever. You want to extend hospitality to them. That's a natural Saint Lucian quality. Trust me, it doesn't exist in all islands and in all countries. I don't want to call out any country or island, but it does not exist. But that's who we are. And that defining Saint Lucian quality is something that, like I said, you don't find anywhere, and we must never lose it. And even amidst all our challenges, we must seek to retain it. And of course, we're an island of extraordinary beauty. When you look at Saint Lucian, it is a beautiful place. That balance of beaches and hills and forests, and we have that balance, we have that beauty, and we must always treasure it. So when we start thinking of tourism, we must think about sustainable tourism. How can we preserve the personality of Saint Lucia? And that becomes a selling point. How can we preserve the physical beauty, the ecological defines of Saint Lucia and protect it for future generations? And part of being Saint Lucian is about maintaining that construct, maintaining, the physicality of Saint Lucia, but also the personality of Saint Lucia, and doing so in a sustainable way. And for it to be sustainable, it cannot be one set accruing all the benefits of it. So we have to find ways and means of making sure that more Saint Lucians can benefit from what is in effect the natural resources of Saint Lucia, because the beaches, communal resources, natural resources, the forests, natural, the waterfalls, even the people and their personality is the natural resource. So as an industry, there's an exploitation of the natural resources of the country. So why don't we argue and create a landscape, a framework where more people can benefit from it? In so doing, I think our Saint Lucian-ness will be accentuated, will be promoted, and we'll probably have a lot more social peace and stability. Thank you very much.
Wow, Mr. Minister. Thanks for that. Absolutely a mouthful, and so important important points that you touched on. I want to remind folks that to post your questions or comments for any of the panelists, or for us to take it as a collective in the Q&A, and I will go through them once John has done his presentation. Minister, a couple of things that you touched on that I think have absolute resonance in terms of us speaking to our Lucian-ness, who we are, etc., is the idea of the economic construct that obtains in St. Lucia today. And back in the day, when bananas ruled, when bananas was green gold, we were also a monocrop economy, but it was bananas. And I remember in those days, actually I worked at what is now Bank of St. Lucia, and I used to do a payroll every week of $2 million in cash for the Banana Growers Association. There was another $500,000 that went to Denry Farm Co. And every week you would watch farmers coming in to cash their checks. Some farmers who couldn't read nor write. All they could do was sign their names. And I watched how that money flowed through the economy. They went out and they bought stuff and spent and sent the kids to school, and even some of the homes that you see in the countryside today. And for me, it's absolutely painful watching now the monocrop economy that we have, that is tourism, where that spread across the country doesn't occur anymore. So it is absolutely heartwarming to hear you speak to the idea of seeing more of those economic resources have greater impact across our society. And it's one thing for government to seek to create an enabling environment. It's another thing for the average Joe St. Lucian to feel a true co-participant, that he can get up, she can get up, and go make it happen and be given equal opportunity and not discriminated against, etc., etc. So that's just a little bit pulling out a little bit from what you spoke to. But I want to invite John in now to share some of his unique perspective as a tourism entrepreneur, as someone deeply involved in the tourism industry from even before he went into private enterprise, and also speaking from that perspective of being Lucian, what it is to be Lucian, what's the contribution we can make, etc. And once again, just encouraging folks to share your thoughts, share your questions, comments, observations, etc. in the Q&A once you want it to be picked up and shared here in this public forum for further discussion. So with that said, John, let me invite you in. All yours.
Thank you very kindly, Kirk. I want to tell the minister that he stole my thunder, having covered all the bases, so he has somewhat truncated my preamble. But it's an honor to share with you, Kirk, and an honor to share with the minister, honor with gratitude, that is, to share this platform where we can opine on our socioeconomic environment, current socioeconomic environment. I want to pay special homage to you, Kirk, for having the foresight to originate this program. As I said to you and to the minister prior to the show, you were able to see that one episode or one program or one sitting was never going to be enough to discuss who we are as a people, as Saint Lucians. And so you have broken it up into 12 separate episodes. Having gone through your first 4 episodes, I will tell you this, you will need a few more than 12 episodes so you can invite greater intelligence and a discussion and discourse regarding who we are as a people. Today, we are discussing the socioeconomic factors of who we are as a Saint Lucian. And I planned not to prepare any notes because I was not given a speech. I was not going to give a speech, but to opine from my own perspective, from my own experiences. And while it's not going to be caustic, I am happy to realize I started very close that I am guilty of being a thorn in the minister's side. From the moment he took office, my very first note to him was, Minister, tourism is not spelled H-O-T-E-L. Thankfully, he has taken this on his various platforms and made it a cliche. I disclose right now that I am the one who's reminding that tourism is not spelled H-O-T-E-L. If you go to Google and you look at tourism, the very easy definition that Google will give you is that tourism is simply the commercial organization and operation of vacations and visits to places of interest. But if you look at the World Tourism Organization's business definition of tourism, it's a commercial entity that is predominantly headed and controlled by tourism, by hotels and accommodation interests, and with the revenue filtering down to local economies. Now, when you look at the very top of that pyramid being formed by the definition, you see private enterprise, private interest, private investors with the various models and circumstances and attributes that allow them to dominate the trade. They're creating the various modus operandi and definitions of the trade of tourism. And so I looked at it and saw that tourism is in fact spelled H-O-T-E-L. As an employee in the hotel industry, I saw that. And we were being trained, not educated, trained to give great service, and you were rewarded according to that. But there was no provision for you to own the tourism industry. Moving into entrepreneurship, I find myself, and this is my own experience, so that you understand, fellow audience, and this is my experience. So you were doing in various departments, accounting and management, you have been rewarded as employee of the year, employee of the month, you're given accolades when you are an employee performing. But as soon as you become an entrepreneur, you become a pariah to the very establishments that herald you as a model employee. So you are now looked at as a competitor because you are providing services directly to the demography of tourism service recipients. And so when you look at the constructs of tourism organizations throughout especially the Caribbean, it is hotels and then tourism. And you ask yourself, who's a hotel, who's tourism? And this confusing dichotomy only allows for a privileged few to dominate the industry. And so I felt it necessary to lobby, to create the change necessary. I will tell you this, folks, the minute you are able to provide an environment in which everyone can thrive according to his or her innate talent and ability, you will see greater impetus, greater interest from the entire population, especially the youth economy, and you will have less crime. I already see that starting to happening, especially in the north. When was the last time you heard crime against a visitor in Gros Islet? You can't remember. And that is because there is deliberate effort in connecting tourists directly to the society and the economy, because that's exactly what tourism is, where visitors move into their place, away from the place of domain, and experience different community. So when I see now that you have a community tourism bill, I am happy, but tourism is community. When I see you now have a draft of a tourism development bill, excitedly happy, but tourism development is the entire community. One bold move I have seen, and I'm not going to belabor my preamble because the minister has covered so much of the positions that I hold. One bold move is that this new legislation has been revolutionary in redefining tourism. You see, the domain of definition is an extremely powerful tool. When you can define something or someone, that makes you extremely powerful. The very beginning of our Genesis, Adam was given priority to name things. And in naming things, he controlled everything by naming it. The very same thing happens in our tourism. And I'm happy to see, Mr. Minister, that you
I'm hoping that John will chip back in. He did indicate that it was raining by him. So just giving him a moment to see.
The very basis for the changes necessary for us to start, for us as a whole to start embracing and enduring Saint Lucia's tourism. When you look at the landscape, you will see predominantly, as you said, Minister, it is dominated by a privileged few. What happens? The privileged few bring in their own people to run and dominate tourism, and we are simply we're vassal participants in tourism. I'll tell you this, if we can clean the hotel, run its various departments, run the activities, why is it that we cannot own the tourism industry itself, own a portion of it? Because that's what empowerment is. With that word empowerment, I once asked a leader, why are we investing so much time and resources inviting people to invest in our tourism economy? Why not develop the art form and education and processes where we learn to own the tourism industry? The gentleman leaned forward and said to me that we simply can't. And in that room were 14 people, only 2 of them were employees. Every single person on that table were tourism owners, including himself. So that alone tells you the consciousness, our consciousness has to change. The consciousness over centuries of falsifying our consciousness, having us accept who we are not, has to change. And I'm happy to say and the criticisms of others as well. But I truly believe that you cannot continue to develop and build a tourism-dependent economy in which the very majority of our population are regimented to the service, behest, and advantage of a very privileged few. The moment you are able to transform where you can build bigger pies and embrace everyone, the visitor that comes to endear and embrace our culture and who we are, the investor has to do the same. But more importantly, we have to embrace ourselves as Saint Lucians, as who we are, as you described, Mr. Minister. And in doing so, we'll be sharing a bounty with the rest of the world and receiving the elements of that bounties without any restriction. So with that, Kirk, I want to thank you for allowing me in. And I'm hoping that our general audience can learn something from our combined experiences and be part and parcel of the change necessary in the local tourism economy. Thanks a lot.
Okay, so thank you so much for that, John. You did chip out a little bit, but I think that we still managed to get the gist of what you were saying. So once again, insightful in terms of the contributions. And what I hope we are sharing is really a coming of age, an awareness, and helping fellow St. Lucians to appreciate this coming of age. I think of it as this way. Let's just imagine that you've got a young child growing up, and unfortunately, that child's parents pass away. What they have left generally will have to be held in trust for the child. if there's a car, that child cannot drive the car until the child is of driving age and learns to drive. I think of us as a growing nation like that. And a lot has happened in the past that has disfavored us, but we are coming of age. And it really takes government to help guide that direction, to help guide the course. And then it becomes government in conjunction with private enterprise, government creating the enabling environment for that private enterprise. So as the child comes of age, the child is able to take control of the car and also to start charting its own destiny. If we look at things through that lens, I think that there can be an awareness of this being an excitingly monumental and pivotal moment in time as we speak to our Lucian-ness, what it is to be Lucian, and how do we harness that quintessential Lucian-ness to help us to be the best that we can be for our collective benefit. So that's what I have been getting out of just the sharing that both you gentlemen have brought to the table. And I hope that that transcends to the wider audience that will consume this program. I'm also going to pull up some comments that have come in, and let me just thank participants. First one that is here, coming in from Nelly, and this is directed to you, Mr. Minister. Mr. Hilaire, given that tourism contributes a huge percentage to St. Lucia's GDP, it is a fact that tourism is a very sensitive industry susceptible to global shocks as evidenced by the COVID-19 pandemic. What are government's plans to develop other sectors of the economy or even develop new high-value economic generators such as fintech, scientific innovations, etc., etc.? So, Minister, all yours on that one.
Cook, that question is always asked across, different discussions, whatnot, always asked. And let's discuss economics, in reality, away from the social commentary side of it. We are a small, open economy, I don't think there's any other major economy in the world that is of similar size in terms of geographic area than, say, Saint Lucia and associated islands, except probably Singapore, and maybe, Hong Kong, a couple like that. But they have huge populations compared to us. The ideal circumstances is to have a diversified economy. And why? As mentioned in the question that you asked, if one sector faces any shock, you have other sectors that can compensate for this, yeah? So that's ideal. But when we had agriculture, and bananas in particular, it was monocrop. It was a single dependent economic activity that was susceptible to shocks as well. If a hurricane came and destroyed banana industry, we had to wait 9 months for recovery to a year. So we did have that. In this case, COVID is the shock, but we've had the hurricanes as shock before. The reality is that when one speaks of manufacturing, where is the competitive advantage? Now, there are niche activities within manufacturing that we can have competitive advantages in. There are, let's not discount it. But it is not on the scale, certainly not yet, where we can claim that we have a manufacturing component that can carry the economic development of this country. So we have some Barron Foods is doing something, we have some cocoa, we have some kind of, activity, not really agro-processing as such with CMOS, because it's largely we're still selling a raw product overseas. but there are not many activities we can boast of having a truly competitive advantage in, not many. We tried financial services, but we saw what the OECD did in terms of trying to regulate global activity, in that process, killing the financial services in countries like ours. So the WTO ruling for the banana industry, which is probably one of the few agricultural products we could really have had an advantage in. But even then, our advantage was based upon the United Kingdom giving us preferential treatment. You spoke of the $2 million a week and the extra $500,000 that went to Dairy Farm Co. We were so successful because the UK was giving us preferential treatment. The moment that was removed, we had no advantage anymore. And watch what happened to our banana industry. Financial services, what has happened? As it turns out, the only thing that we have a competitive advantage in is tourism. Think about it. The Western countries have not been able to reproduce sand, sea, and sand like we have. They've not been able to reproduce it. And added to that is the nature of our people and the kind of experience we can give them. They've not been able to reproduce that in any factory. They've not been able to reproduce that on any scale. Yes, they have their own tourism and their own experiences, but what we have, the unique ones that we have, they've not been able to reproduce it. And by the way, we're not the biggest tourism destinations in the world. Paris, London, and many other capitals have, many, many times, 20 times the number of visitors we get every year. So we're not even the biggest in tourism. It is wrong for an economy to be so solely dependent on one economic activity, and you have to diversify. But we've had a challenge as a small economy, with no economies of scale and no low cost of production, to really find economic activity that can be as significant as tourism. Tourism probably contributes directly about 40% of GDP, indirectly probably higher than this. But what other activities can we have that can really compensate for this? We have to continue the search. We have to find new areas. But I mean, do we have the competitive advantage for us to be as significant as tourism? We have a competitive advantage in tourism. We do. Now, I also, it's an issue that I've been reflecting a lot on. I probably need to speak to some of my friends, involved in economics and econometrics and some of those other areas. Because a lot of people are saying we're so dependent on tourism, and it is true. And we need linkages. And think about it. The more linkages we have, isn't that means we are becoming more dependent on it? Let me explain. So we create more linkages with fishermen, with farmers, with the creatives. And it means all those economic activities increase. But they depend on the tourist industry for the increase and the expansion. And the monies that they earn and the livelihoods they create depends on the tourists coming in the first place. So as we create more linkages and more money is spent locally, and all the associated economic activity expands and grows, but all of them come back to the central point of the visitor that comes into the country. So in creating more linkages, we actually creating greater dependency in some ways. Now, it's something I'm reflecting on, and I'm not even sure if I have it right in terms of my conceptual understanding, because we need to protect, we have to have more linkages. But for economies to grow, in terms of economics, you have to generate new, you have to produce new. And we have to find ways to export in this country. We have to find ways to be able to export cheaper than other people. It's the only way we will be competitive, because if you're producing shirts and it's costing you 15 US to produce a shirt, but somebody in Bangladesh is producing the same shirt for 5 US, you're not going to survive. There must be something so different and unique about your shirt that people will buy it. So if Bangladesh is producing shirts for 5 US, so we have to produce it less than that, or produce such a unique shirt with unique materials that they would buy it before the one from Bangladesh. And these are the simple economic facts. So it is a struggle for small islands like ours to be able to build industry that has competitive advantage and that can become so big that it can create that non-reliance on the one single thing you had. We had bananas, now we have tourism. And it's a developmental challenge that we face. If we want our people to have sustainable livelihoods, to have civilized, decent standards of living, we have to be able to produce more, export more, earn more, to be able to translate that to our people. And for, of course, our people to own so they can earn more for themselves. And it is a developmental challenge.
Okay, so thanks for that, Minister. Thanks for those insights. Let me invite John now just to offer some comments. And it's really going to be interesting because while the question was posed to the minister, which gives it a slant of what is government doing or what can government do, I think it's also really beautiful having the thoughts of independent private enterprise. So from that standpoint, looking forward to hearing your share, John, and also I have some thoughts on it. So John, all yours.
It is for the very reason of the question that the participant posed, that I think it is important that we continue to be passionate about the ownership of the tourism economy. Minister, you're absolutely correct. There is very little maneuvering that we can do, especially for small island development states. Even as the continent of Africa, they are heavily affected by trying to diversify their own economies as well. For us, the monocrop that we have as tourism, if I may call it a crop, the conditions under which we operate this in and it is for that very reason it is important that policymakers and the collective society come together. If we are going to have to unfortunately depend on this monocrop for a while, it is absolutely sine qua non that we open it up, that we have greater direct linkages between the society itself and this monocrop. When that happens, what you find happening, as has been in my case, and as has been in the case of many entrepreneurs, it opens up your talent base, your intellect, your ability to maneuver, your intellectual dexterity, because you are providing service in a very competitive environment, a small space yet very competitive. So what you're doing in developing that competitive space, you are creating service nuances, and once you're able to market that service nuance to an international audience, you attract that audience to your destination. As a result, you're literally opening the gateway. Now you have airlines being more attracted to your destination because there's a greater demand for it. Not only that, you have the yachting sector coming to participate, and you have cultural activists who are working with the yachting sector. When I say cultural activists, tourism, cultural interest, who are working with the yachting sector. And so you have a direct link between tourism and the local economy. Once you have that development directly, it's going to have an impact on the social construct. You're going to see less crime. It has started happening. You're going to see less crime when people are too busy participating in legitimate ways of making money and it's working for them. They have less time to study about how they're going to rob somebody else. So it is for that reason, knowing that we cannot diversify into the sciences as mass as would be necessary for us to be able to survive, but for that one economy, that tourism economy, we must have more ownership participation by indigenous peoples of Saint Lucia. Because once you have ownership, you have power, and power will dictate how free you are in your own locale, in your own. I hope that gives a spin to it.
Okay, thanks for that, John. And if I can share some thoughts, I don't think that the problem lies in the monocrop economy as much as in how effectively we extract value from it. And again, I come back to bananas, and I can use it as an example because I saw firsthand the impact of that banana dollar. And it's interesting that the minister referenced the fact that we benefited only because of the preferential arrangement that existed with the UK. But let's go even deeper than that. Saint Lucia only earned the lamb share. If I think of lion and lamb, it certainly wasn't the lion's share of the economic returns of bananas. That was enjoyed by geese. A certain amount of it went to the administrative inputs through the SLBGA, etc. However, what was there, what accrued to the farmers, to the local economy, was sufficiently large that it was able to grow our economy. Now, let us look at tourism. And this is why, Mr. Minister, the direction that you have taken as Minister of Tourism, and I guess by extension, the government, in really opening up this space for more locals to benefit. And I haven't only heard you talking the talk, because I have sort of waited to see what's going to happen, because I'm directly impacted. But I am also seeing the walking the walk. And I say so having been invited to 2 separate consultations on what might go into the new Tourism Development Act. And then it coming back out to members of the public, although not the broadest cross-section of the public, but there has been consultation. Here is the draft. What do you think of it? What are the areas that you think need to be improved? How do you see it impacting you as a service provider? Even the government's embracing of the term tourism service provider, which, John, it's interesting that you have spoken to speaking to tourism not being spelled H-O-T-E-L-S. Similarly, I have advocated that everyone in this country has the potential to be a tourism service provider. The guy in Bananas who helps a visitor cross the street, stops traffic because he knows the person coming along. And that visitor goes, "Oh my God, look at what you've done for me." And she pushes her hand in her pocket and gives him 20 US as a tip. He is a tourism service provider. And where I see we have not moved to harness the full potential of tourism is that we have not really gone down the road of value add. Chef Orlando has done something with bananas. You know, we've always considered bananas the poor man's food. However, no visitor comes from the first world to eat a steak in Saint Lucia. But what if we were to create something exotic with our local produce, with the bananas, a banana liqueur, you know, a banana whatever, stuff like what Chef has been doing, that we have made it exotic. We create experiences and then we charge visitors for the experiences. That's how we add value. And I am really saluting where the government is going, but I am also saying that we as individuals must build upon that. We must be co-participants with government in terms of taking it higher. Because if we earn sufficient money out of the tourism industry, when the shocks come along, the natural disasters, the whatever will be disruptive, there will be sufficient in our reserves. Let us go back to the Bible. Let us think of Joseph when he was in Egypt and he said, in the years 7 of plenty, let us fill the barns. When the 7 years of famine came, no one need starve in Egypt. So it is for reasons such as this that I am so truly excited about the possibilities. And I love the question that was posed by Nelly, because it is for us to say, not what the problem is, but rather what might the solutions be. Because once we become solutions oriented, we will realize that the sky truly is our oyster. The world is our oyster. The sky is the starting point, not the limit. So tourism is what we have. Minister, like you've said, we have a competitive advantage in that realm. We have to continue to develop our unique selling proposition. What is it about being Lucian? What is it that Saint Lucia has that nowhere else in the world can create, so that we bring visitors in and they happily pay what we consider to be handsome amounts, but which for them is great value for the experiences that they've had. So I just wanted to contribute that as my share. I'm going to open up just for a moment. Minister, if you want to add anything more, John, if you want to add anything more, just in about a minute or so, and then I'm going to take some others, because can you imagine we've already gone 1 hour?
Yeah, well, you're quite right, Kirk, in value add. And one of the questions I ask myself and my team is, you have someone comes and they invest a few $1 million in creating an accommodation property. And it is that value add that creates interest in their property. But we have an entire island of beauty, as the minister articulated in his preamble. How do you now convert that into, from just raw, organic, geographic material into value add? And that is where people come in. That is where we all come in. When I look at the comment that Nelly had regarding the utilization of our harbor more efficiently, that's value add. You can transfer that into more than just a cargo and cruise ship port. That's value add as well. Hemp. You know, there's so many things that we can do to create. There's current emphasis and assistance on the East Coast with the CMOS producers, from farm to table, and recreating that product into not just raw material, but into finished product, just as you do with cocoa and chocolate. In cocoa, you can sell it for $10, but you can convert it to chocolate bar and you sell it for $100. So the same thing happens to our service economy, that we need to be able to untether the youth economy. Let them be interested in tourism so they can bring in innovative values to the service. And then people will pay more. You will not just be driving to Soufrière, but you'll have an experience between your point of pickup to Soufrière. There will be an experience. So the point on value add is a critical one. And it is one that I will continue to engage you and the minister in afterwards, how we can create a space that allows for value add to be innovated.
Thanks, John. Minister, any thoughts from you before we push on to other questions and comments?
No, let's open up. I mean, I'm sure in the course of the dialogue, we'll be able to pitch in on some of the other issues. But yeah, I look forward to the contributions from the attendees.
Okay, beautiful, thanks. Here's another one. We need a Nobel laureate industry, considering as we have the highest per capita. I'm also going to jump on. We are the only country in the world with La Rose and La Marguerite. We need to look at this. Now, again, that can speak to value add, that can speak to tourism contribution, it can speak to so many other aspects, because now this becomes cultural. So let me again just open it up for thoughts or comments from any of you as panelists. Minister, maybe you on this one?
Well, I mean, let's start with the La Rose and Marguerite. You see, again, we need to, other countries have their traditional dances as well and their traditional festivals as well. So, I mean, what our La Rose and our Marguerite does is contribute to the identity we have and the personality that we have. It is not just the La Rose and the Marguerite by itself. It is part of the Saint Lucian-ness that we are selling. So we need to accentuate it, and I'm very pleased to tell you, this year we will have a more significant celebration of La Rose. The Prime Minister had asked that the celebration of Emancipation Day be, significantly improved compared to what we've had in the past. And the CDF has already launched the Emancipation Month program of activities. I don't know if you've seen it, you really probably if not. Take a look at it. We had an official launch a few days ago. And we are going to celebrate emancipation like we've never done before, elevating the significance of emancipation in our national psyche, under the theme rekindling our consciousness. The month ends with the Laos celebration. We'll be doing it in Castries at the Boulevard. And we hope that it will be the biggest celebration of Laos that we've ever had in Saint Lucia. And it's part of keeping with what that comment that was made by the attendee. I'm not sure whose name it is. Laos and La Marguerite are unique. And like I said, that in itself is not sufficient, but that as part of a wider sell, because I don't know you can sell not Laos and people will come to Saint Lucia for the sake of Laos by itself. But Laos as part of a broader experience and a broader package, of experiences. Some people ask me, you're selling Saint Lucia as minister, you're out there. If I come to Saint Lucia, what should I expect? And Laos is part of what you should expect. We have those unique flower festivals, but we also have other things. So you come for a Saint Lucian-ness, a Saint Lucian experience. Similarly, the Nobel Laureate. We have Nobel Laureate Week and Nobel Laureate Month in January every year. Both Nobel laureates were born on the same day, January 21st. So we need to be able to say to people, that's part of our Saint Lucian-ness that we are selling, we are promoting, we are sharing. And I say to individuals, we have to always remember what is our living space is a vocation space for the visitor. So therefore, our people must have the mindset that they want to share their living space with the visitor. If I am not prepared to share my living space with you, I will treat you as an intruder. I will treat you as somebody who's invading my privacy. Now, government might be able to shield off certain areas for visitors to go, but that's not sufficient. So I need to be ready to share my living space, my island, my villages, my parks, my rivers, my waterfalls, my beaches, with you, the visitor who is on vacation, but that's not your living space. So it changes the mindset. So the Nobel Laureate week or month, the Laos, the La Marguerite, the Emancipation Day, the Carnival, the jazz, all those things are parts of the Lucian-ness that you have to say to the world, come and enjoy it, come and share it with me. Come on and celebrate it with me. And that will be the basis of our tourism industry. Now, you may choose to go to a hotel or a resort when you are here, or you might choose to go to a home accommodation in Labre or in Soufre. You have a multiplicity of offerings. You have collection de pipites, which means you can go to one of those villas. So there are multiplicity of offerings in Saint Lucia, from the 5-star high-end to the 2-star, 3-star, to the home accommodation, to the villas. Saint Lucia will offer all of it to you. Come and share our Saint Lucian-ness with us. And that is, each one is part of it.
Okay, thanks for that, Minister. And again, if I'm hearing you correctly, starting out from your initial position of creating a larger space for the economic benefits of tourism to accrue across the board, not to one particular sector of St. Lucia, but rather to the broadest cross-section. And now I'm hearing you further expanding on that position with the recognition that by expanding the economic reach and the economic impact, we are also creating greater value for the visitor by giving them a greater experience. And now more than ever, visitors are no longer just craving sun, sea, and sand, but rather they're seeking out meaningful experiences and wanting to make meaningful contributions to the growth and development of the communities and the local people that they visit.
Yeah.
More than once, I have had visitors ask me, why is it that I'm coming to St. Lucia that is predominantly Black, and I'm seeing white faces on the brochures? Like, where are the people of the country? More than once I have had visitors ask me that. And I also find it instructive that if one goes onto TripAdvisor and look in any one of the categories, more often than not, the top 5 positions, or certainly the majority of those top 5 positions as rated by visitors, are little operations that generally are acting outside of the mainstream of the official country marketing and promotion. And when you read the comments that guests put on there, the comments are speaking to the authenticity of their experiences. So again, just coming back, and Dawn, that was Dawn French. Dawn, thanks for bringing up that point about La Waz and La Marguerite and Nobel laureates, etc. Because all of these are parts of our Lucian-ness. Like when we start to embrace and enjoy them and celebrate them, we will then be able to share them, because we will not be viewing them with scorn and reproach and they must be hidden away, but rather we will be embracing them as uniquely our own, and in the process, value adding and bringing greater economic benefit. So having given that mouthful, let me invite John, because I am sure, John, that again, as a tourism practitioner, that you will have some thoughts on some of these matters as well.
I just want to also commend John French for bringing up that point. Colleagues, we have to embrace our culture. We have to learn how to re-embrace ourselves. Where else do you find La Waz? Where else do you find La Marguerite? Nowhere else. We have to first embrace it. In embracing it, I must point out that our consciousness have been so falsified that we have been trained to hate ourselves and hate who we are. The very thing that makes us intelligent, that creates and brings out our intelligence, we have been made historically to hate ourselves and hate it. Creole, for example. Creole is a language that is created out of necessity. As you've heard, we have been conquered so many times. There is a need for us to invent a language for us to be able to communicate in spite and despite of all of the occupation that we have had. So Creole was developed. But for those who subjugate us, we were told that you should not speak Creole. And it was inculcated by our foreparents that we should not embrace Creole. But Creole is one of the most potent intellectual languages you can ever think of. For doing so, we find ourselves in a dichotomy. We negate La Waz and La Marguerite because it is for Creole-speaking people. Yet it is the very identity that decides who we are. And it is that we can now embrace and make a unique feature of our tourism product. Again, in this whole definition and those embracing conversation we're having, look at the names of our towns and villages. They are all French. But look at the names of parts of our communities where it has been named by our own people. We have been made so unconscious of how we derogate those places that we attempt to anglicize it. There is no such place as Vieux-Fort. It is Vieux-Fort, an old fort. There is no such place as Cazenbach. Cazenbach is a misspelled, mispronounced, badly anglicized derogation of Kayaba. There is no such thing. The Kayaba does not say anything to you. But if you're able to bring out the history, the name Kayaba, because there's a reason why it is Kayaba. If you're able to bring that out, there's no such thing as praline. It is Kwalin. Laboui. That's why they have a Laboui promotion, not a Labri promotion. It is that ingratiating of ourselves into ourselves and now rekindling that love for self, love for who we are. Then that love will translate into our ability to add value to the tourism product. Because vicariously through your own embracing of self, you are able to passionately sell yourself to the international community. And that international audience will want to come in and embrace your culture. They want to experience it because you love it so much. So thanks, Dawn French, for that. We probably have to take this as separate interviews or separate discussions, because we need to really develop those art forms that identify us and make us unique, and stop continuing to derogate ourselves and our consciousness and the environment. I just wanted to add to that, because I think that, you know, we really need to embrace ourselves and rename and redefine those institutions of culture that will help us create the value add in tourism.
Okay, thanks for that, John. And if I move on, here is another contribution from Nelly. I think, John, you touched on some of it, but I'm still going to go through. Dr. Hilaire, I have always wondered, why aren't St. Lucians allowed to enjoy one of the most natural and beautiful harbors in the Caribbean? They are usually exclusive to huge cruise ships and other port users. But I see the harbor as a way to create a unique form of entertainment and money generation for the island. Example, having a festival of boat rowing races the length of the harbor between Saint Lucia, Martinique, Guadeloupe, Barbados, or even community teams vying for a title, thus creating unity and togetherness. This event would generate another form of finances to vendors, port users, etc. So very, very interesting take here, or observation from Nelly again. Mr. Minister, yours on that one?
Well, I mean, we don't have to always think either or. I mean, cruise ships make a significant contribution and vendors benefit tremendously from cruise ships. Taxi drivers benefit from it. Of course, we always want to benefit more. But there are also issues to, you can't just open the ports. I mean, there are international agreements, there are control requirements for the ports. So you have to be, you are also, you know, confined in what you can do with the ports. You can't just have open ports. And the reason why they have international agreements as to how you manage your ports, how you secure your ports. But the point that's been made is probably a little deeper than that. It is how we can use those things for local benefit. And that's precisely what we've been talking about. How do you have the value added? So let me give you an example. The cruise ships leave at a certain time, and we will say to the cruise ships, why don't you stay longer? They ask us to do what? Once darkness settles, what do? They can't do sightseeing in darkness. So all sightseeing must end by about 6 o'clock. But what can you offer us to make us stay in Saint Lucia longer? We want reasons to stay in Saint Lucia longer. So we now are thinking in the ministry, and we've asked SLASPA, the Tourism Authority, to come up with some program, a strategy, and some action plan as to how we can offer more so the cruise ships can stay more. And part of it can be some of what Nelly suggested. So whether it's at the waterfront, whether it's in the boulevard, whether it's at the square, we can create activities. So cruise passengers, when they finish their sightseeing tour about 5 o'clock, don't go to the cruise ship. They probably go to the square, and you have cultural performances, you have vendors, you have all kinds of entertainment and food on sale, or do it in the boulevard before they eventually go onto the cruise ship and then leave. So you add more value. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the harbor. We can have, you know, canoe races, and we can have all those things. It doesn't have to be in the harbor. I mean, the harbor is, well, the ports is a restricted area. I mean, in terms of what you can do and what you cannot do. But we can have the same idea of creating more value and creating more opportunities for wealth creation, you know, in other areas. And it's something we have to think of doing, and something that we are putting our minds to, so we can, you know, be able to achieve that. Maybe not next year, but certainly, you know, over time, we'll be able to achieve that. I think I answered the question, no?
Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for that, Minister. Now, I want to once again salute Dawn French, as our running links queen. Dawn has just shared a couple of links, one on cross-fertilization, and I will share the links when I do the posting, the video replay. Dawn has also shared a link for the launch of emancipation, and I think, Minister, you had hardly gotten the words out of your mouth on it when Dawn had a link up. And that's done as always. She's just shared another link on, again, as soon as you spoke to the restrictions related to the ports and international regulations, Dawn has shared a link on international ship and port facility security codes. I think the beautiful thing that's coming out of this engagement is the exchanging of ideas. And the truth really is that iron sharpens iron. So really by exchanging these thoughts and ideas, this is how we can have deeper understanding, engagement, and growth. Let me just take in a couple of other points that I have seen coming in. And Sila, let me just see here, Princess Onika has said, and make Creole Month international also. There are markets that can be targeted. Imagine New Orleanians can understand our Creole, and there are similar Creole speakers in Africa and Asia, etc. So we can make it international, opening ourselves to new markets. So again, it's coming back here, the whole idea of thinking in abundance, thinking how can I, as opposed to I cannot. Let me just continue scrolling through here and see what's coming up. Come back here. Celia has said, sky, sun, and sand is not unique only to Saint Lucia. Let's just see what's coming here. The question is, what is it that makes or will make Saint Lucia stand out to encourage return visitation and a stronger selling point? Again, coming back to that same position of what is our unique selling proposition? Deirdre Williams, in responding to the minister, in terms of encouraging Saint Lucians to share their space, we need a change of perspective in terms of what is and who owns Saint Lucian space. Nelly has come back in. Maybe have a national cultural ball where La Rose and La Marguerite and attendees can come together and have an evening of elegance in cultural dress, cultural music, Nobel laureate literary appreciation, and fine dining. Again, we're coming back to the position of value adding. And let me just take a pause again, just having shared all of those thoughts coming through, and just get any thoughts, comments coming in from either the minister or from John.
Well, let me first apologize. For some reason, my PC just crashed on me.
Oh, no.
So I'm rebooting it now. So I had to use my mobile phone to get back on. So sorry for the loss of the beautiful background that we had. Of course, I trust everybody recognizes that the background is Marigot Beach called Labas Beach, and it's in Castries South, my constituency. Just what I should put that in. So I kind of missed exactly what was said. So I don't know if you want to update me before I comment on it. I kind of lost.
Okay.
What said.
What I did was I just pulled from the comments that were in the chat. Although I've invited folks to really post in the Q&A, there was quite a bit coming in the chat. So I just read through that Dawn had shared quite a couple of links. Let me just go back to the comments.
Yeah.
Okay, you'd gotten that.
Yeah.
I read out the comment from Celia that said, sky, sun, and sand is not unique only to Saint Lucia. The question is, what is it that makes or will make Saint Lucia stand out to encourage return visitation and be a stronger selling point?
I think we dealt with that in the first part when I started. We actually made that point. And it is our Saint Lucian-ness and the experiences people get arising out of that will make them want to come back over and over again. Yes, sand, sea, and sand is not unique to Saint Lucia, although I will say the sand, sea, and sand in Saint Lucia is not the same as in England or in France or in Norway. As tropical environments, we seem to have a more attractive, combination of the three. And of course, if you add the Mediterranean, the Greek islands, and some parts of Italy. So we tend to have some uniqueness in that regard, which gives us a comparative advantage. But people travel for more than just those reasons, which is why Paris and London get more visitors than us, of course. But there's something about us, and it is our, our personality. Is how we treat people, how we relate to people, the experiences they get when they come to our country. That is what we sell. That is what we say to people is the reason why you must come to us in the first place, and you must keep on coming. I mean, and she's right. It is not enough to boast of sea, sun, and sun. You have to have more than that. And how you treat people and the personality and the experiences that they get is going to be sufficient reason. Because you think about a 5-star hotel, can exist in any part of the world. So it has to have something more than just that. And the comment is absolutely spot on. And that's what we're trying to create, something unique and distinct that they won't get elsewhere. It doesn't mean they won't get unique and distinct other places, but they would prefer ours. Ours would have a vibe about it. Ours would have an attraction about it. Ours would have a connection about it that they will want to come to Saint Lucia over and over again.
Okay, thanks for that, Minister. Now we are, at 4:25, so we are looking to wrap up. And once again, we are not able to get through all of the comments. But let me just take this one, which maybe can be the final one. So Alcina, thanks for sharing. And Alcina writes, I am ready, able, and willing to share my art studio and my talents with the visitor. I have had several persons want to come, and they were stopped by the hotel. All of the many creatives in Saint Lucia need to recognize and be given credibility, and that credential made known to the hotels as a recommendation for their guests. The creative products need to be promoted in the selling of Saint Lucia. I have asked cruise ship passengers what they have heard about art in Saint Lucia. They say time and time again that they were told there is nothing here to buy. Even the hotel shops display the same old souvenir items and don't reach out to artistic, unique products. Then they want it embarrassingly low prices when their guests are able and willing to spend money for art, not souvenirs. You're going to say, start your own shop to sell your product. It has been tried. Galleries and art shops have tried and have given up. The most affordable locations are away from the tourist route, negating your sales. So it's a lament, it's a cry, it's a call for help. And there's so many instances of cries like this. As we look to wrap up, Minister, some thoughts?
I mean, this one is one of the more difficult aspects that we have to deal with. And it's difficult because some of those issues are really rooted in private sector relations. And it is difficult because, for example, the hotels are trying to keep as much of the monies for themselves. And if people go out and spend all the money elsewhere, some of them believe that the shops will, in this particular instance, the shops would suffer. So they much rather say to the visitor, you can get it from my shop. There's not really much to go out there and see. How does government stop that? How do we deal with this? And then they will say to those same individuals, we're going to buy it from you at, like that was said, at a very cheap price. So they can sell it in their shop at a much higher price and earn the profits. How do we stop that? I'm still not very clear in my mind how government can get involved in a case like that. Do we penalize hotels for telling guests to use their shops and buy from their shops? I don't know that we can do that. It is a challenge. It's one thing to say, well, you cannot have foreign-owned photography services, or water sports should be locally controlled. I mean, there are different ways in which government can intervene, but at the same time, I think government still has to be able to allow space for business development. And it is difficult. I don't have a clear and obvious answer as yet, and it's something that's been brought up with me. I've reflected on it. I have discussed it with some of our people, and I'm going to continue to discuss it with staff and get different perspectives from it. And I would love anyone to share with me ideas as how they believe government can tackle those problems, because these are some of the bigger and deeper problems that are really challenging for us to resolve.
Minister, thanks for that. And if I can just throw in my 3 cents. The direction in which government is going, I believe, is a great one. This idea of opening up the space, of speaking to more of the economic benefits of tourism accruing to more of Saint Lucia, a broader cross section. Now, government, through the Saint Lucia Tourism Authority, promotes Saint Lucia. It will be good to see some of that promotion going towards authentic, indigenous, local spheres of endeavor, and in a meaningful way. I can just use it as an example.
Give me an example. Yeah.
Yes. I have had folks reach out to me and say, wow, Kirk, I never knew that you knew so much about history. In that little bit that I did for the Saint Lucia Tourism Authority for the road show.
Yeah.
And I remember sharing with Richard, God bless his soul, he reached out to me and said, Kirk, I'd love for you to do a little something. And I said to him afterwards, you know, Richard, this is all beautiful. But there I was speaking to Saint Lucia, speaking to the history, but there was nothing in there that allowed a visitor to connect directly with me. So I think that if we now look at taking some of these authentic, some of these grassroots activities, and they all need to be vetted to make sure that they're value add, that they meet the standards, etc. But let us make them available to the visitor in a way that protects all. And I come back and I say, and just about everyone in the pet chihuahua knows the challenges that I have had, and I haven't been bashful about speaking to those challenges. But I think that where we can go to at a fundamental level is a recognition that of abundance rather than scarcity. There are more visitors in the world that can come to Saint Lucia and spend money in Saint Lucia than there are service providers in Saint Lucia to service. So if we start seeing it in terms of abundance rather than scarcity, a visitor is going to stay somewhere. It's very likely going to be at a hotel, but there are just certain experiences that no hotel can give to a visitor. And that visitor is robbed of the broader experience and appreciation of Saint Lucia as a unique location. So it is for us to come together and recognize that you get more business in a mall than you get in a single shop on the side of the road. So if we all become co-participants in the magnification of our tourism, we all collectively will do better, and government as well, because government will also reap the greater earning benefits that will come from the revenue, even for instance, as the new tourism development bill speaks to, which really has me excited. Gosh, we are encouraged, and in the process, we are also going to be bringing into the government's coffers through the value add and the service charge that is levied on visitors. So those are just my little 3 cents on it, and always happy to take the conversation further, you know, privately and publicly. So
thank you very much for this.
Yeah. So now we have hit now on just over 90 minutes. Let me invite closing words first from you, John, and then from the minister, and then I will just come around and thank everyone. And again, apologize for not being able to get to all that came up in the conversation today. But great conversation again.
Your response to Alcina was well articulated, and Alcina also very well, her lamentations were very, very well articulated. And it also speaks to that there are people with the innovative capacities here, but the ability to reach the market. I want to let her know, even in a private sector capacity, we, the tourism service providers, are already reaching directly to the consumers. We have consumers right now who are making decisions to come to St. Lucia, not because the hotel has invited them, but because the attributes of our offerings are so competitive. So we now have people who are saying, for example, they have an $8,000 budget. Rather than give $5,000 or $6,000 to the hotel, they are staying at $2,000 and $3,000 accommodation, and they want some really exquisite experiences. And our job now, our métier, is to package those experiences to ensure and capture that remaining funds. So that is beginning to happen. And while yes, we should employ on the tourism authorities, we are coming together to do that. And in fact, that's what put foods on my table right now, because I'm able to invest in reaching the consumer at the decision-making point and not really having the hotels decide that for them. So really it's important to meet the visitor before they make the decision to come here, so we can influence the decision into our corner. And that comes with competitive conversations. Cruise conversion, we have over 700,000 visitors coming for one-day visit. Mr. Minister, I will engage in private exchange, but we should be able to convert at least 1% of those people into land-based visits. I have been able to successfully do that on a small scale. We need to take it out. It's a no-brainer. These people have paid their cruises. They're here for one day. We're giving them an experience of the island for one day. Let us now build that into experiences for an entire week. So cruise conversion is another aspect of the value add within tourism, and we can all do that. What is that all saying, folks? Is that there is innovation here. There is innovation for us. There's capacity to innovate exists within the tourism economy in St. Lucia if everyone is allowed to participate in that economy. And in closing, I just want to say this. I am thankful that finally that we are all able to participate. We can see a vision, and we are all able to participate in the bountiful development and returns of tourism. But it must be, I must caution us that it is important that we continue on that trajectory. I repeat, like I started, gentlemen, audience, we cannot continue to build and develop a tourism economy in which the majority population is regimented to the service, advantage, and behest of a very privileged few. While we are investing in allowing people to come and invest, making citizens out of them, they come and they dominate our landscape. It really is infra D to invite someone to assist you in building your house. And at the end of it, they have the house and you're begging for a space beneath it. We have to change that. We have to continue to work diligently together. That doesn't mean my conversation here is not against anyone, but we must embrace ourselves and take charge of our domain. Because if we don't do that, we'll continue selling our domains to everyone else for nothing. Thank you very kindly for the opportunity to participate. Mr. Minister, it was good to be on the forum with you. I will continue to prick you. Tourism is not spelled H-O-T-E-L, sir. Let us make the difference. Thank you for that draft, and we're looking forward to the changes coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. And Mr. Minister, all yours, just as we wrap up.
Well, I think we need to focus on how it is we can transform the tourism industry so that St. Lucians increasingly can participate in it and increasingly start owning it. It is our most valuable economic resource right now. It's not just sand, sea, and sand. It's not just that, it's more that it's an economic resource. And therefore, it's an economic resource that we have to ensure that we receive greater benefit from it. There will always be differences as to what we should commercialize, what we should not. There are traditionalists and purists and the romantics that believe we should not be selling our culture, we should not be opening our private spaces to visitors. There are different perspectives. But certainly we have to be able to find the right balance between, how we can commercialize the assets that we have, whilst at the same time not losing our sense of who we are and why we are here in the first place. And I think in many ways that's the challenge. There are people that don't like the sight of huge cruise ships in the harbor because they feel it spoils the naturalness of the harbor. And why am I selling tourism? I should not be selling tourism, whatnot. It is an economic resource that we have, and we want at the end of the day our people to have sustainable livelihoods. So it's very easy for some of us who are very comfortable with our professions and our capacity to enjoy decent, civilized living. There are a lot of people that need the economic activity for them to survive and to thrive. And we want to see how this economic resource we have can be better, structured in a way so more Saint Lucians, can own it and participate in it, those who cannot own it. And we will continue that journey. We will look to restructure it. We are not decrying, we're not pushing out anybody. It's not a zero-sum game. It's not if you benefit, I lose. Let's make it a positive sum game. Let's make it bigger and better so that those who have can get even more and those who don't have can get a piece of it. And I think that's the mindset we have to have. And we'll continue to strive to do so. The tourism development draft bill, which we now discussing, is designed to achieve some of that. It's not all, but it is designed to achieve some of that. And I'm looking forward to the discussions and the feedback and how we can make it even better. Now that it has gone out to the stakeholders, then we will go out to the public and the wider public, like you spoke of, and for them to be able to contribute. Of course, there'll be people who will be threatened by it because they cannot move beyond the zero sum to the positive sum concepts. So then they will be threatened by it. They'll probably believe they'll have less benefit than before. But the truth is, if it gets bigger and better, everybody will benefit more. So let us move in that direction, and let us see how best we can structure an industry that will be sustainable in all its dimensions, ecologically, economically, socially, and politically. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Kirk, just before you leave, I just wanted to place a caution. While I embrace the draft, that doesn't mean the entire draft is great. I'm tearing it apart in private. I'll give you the links necessary. The definition of who's and what's a DMC and all of that jazz, and we're going to talk about that in private. But generally, it's a bill for me. I really love what you have done. You guys have done. It's awesome. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to tear apart in private. All right.
I'm looking forward to that.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Let me thank both of my guests this afternoon. John, my friend, colleague, we do quite a bit in terms of exchanging thoughts on tourism, the direction of it, what can be good, what are the challenges, how can we make it better. Mr. Minister, to you, thanks again for making the time to come on. And yes, I did put your business out, that, my God, you cut your breakfast short to come be with us, spent all this time. I mean, absolutely appreciative, engaged with our audience. And this is what the discussion must always be about. It's about us as Saint Lucians. How do we do better? How do we build together? Because we are all one, first and foremost, and we are all interested in seeing better. To my audience today, let me thank you so very much. Let me apologize again that I wasn't able to go through all of your comments and questions, but what I promise is that I will post everything in the notes that will be shared in YouTube, and anywhere where there are answers that are called for, I will be sure to get those answers in. So thanks again to everyone for this evening session. Do have a great rest of your evening. Be good, be safe. Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks all. Bye.